Martin Luther King Jr. was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. At 35 years old, he became the youngest person ever to receive this prestigious award.
In the face of mounting criticism, King broadened his approach to include concerns other than racism. He arrived here in Memphis, Tennessee, to lead a strike of city sanitation workers. But no one was prepared for the tragedy that awaited him.
You can turn your back on me, but you cannot turn your back upon the idea of justice.
King broadened the movement after the Civil Rights Act of '64 to the right to vote for all. And in 1966, this bill was signed into law.
Dr. King realized that these acts did not solve the de facto problems of society. Or you could legislate an act, but you can't legislate people's ideas. You could pass an act that would give you the right to vote, but it's more than the right to vote.
King spent the majority of that year touring the country to make sure voting registration was available in all.
The most racially segregated city outside of the South in the United States was Chicago.
This is a terrible thing. I've been in many demonstrations all across the South, but I can say that I have never seen, even in Mississippi and Alabama, mobs as hostile and as hate-filled as I've seen here in Chicago.
And he spoke about the need for us to take a moral stand against the war in Vietnam.
The argument within the civil rights community was that civil rights was about domestic politics, that foreign affairs had nothing to do with the civil rights agenda. But ethically, as a theologian, as a Christian, he said he knew that all war was wrong.
When King did that, Hoover and others, J. Edgar Hoover and others went after him. Boy, why are you speaking about Vietnam? You just a black thing. The only thing you should be speaking about is the rights of blacks. And King remembered what Douglass said, Frederick Douglass, a broke freedom anywhere is broke freedom everywhere.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper.
Next, King's obstacle was economic rights. This led him back to the South.
In going to Memphis, he was interrupting a poor people's campaign. And they asked him to come down there and make a speech. And most of us thought of this as a distraction, and we didn't want him to go.
Martin Luther King's last speech was given on the eve of his assassination, foreshadowing his own death, a subject he had never publicly spoke about before.
Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
At the time of President Kennedy's killing, Martin said, well, if they can't protect the president, you know they can't protect us. It was as though from that time on, he lived as though every day might be his last.
Was it a premonition? Perhaps. But it was a sense that what he had fulfilled, what he had done, had reached a logical kind of conclusion.
I had been in the court because after that march, the court said we couldn't march again. And then when I came back, he just seemed to be happy and sat down on the edge of the bed. He started clowning. You've been gone all day. Don't you know you're supposed to stay in touch with me? And I said, but you know, I couldn't leave the court. I was on the witness stand. I don't care. You're supposed to get me some kind of message. How do you think I'm supposed to run this movement if I don't know what's going on? And he picked up a pillow off the bed and he started beating me with the pillow. And I picked up a pillow and we started, you know, I mean, we were acting like children. And then everybody started picking up pillows and we had a big pillow fight with me ending up down on the ground between two beds, you know, and then somebody came to the door and said, it's time for us to go to dinner. And he came out ready to go to dinner without a top coat. And it was April, and he had had a cold the night before, and fever. And I said, you know, you better bring your coat because it's liable to get colder. And it was like he looked up to say, do I really need a coat? And as he looked up like that, a shot rang out and a bullet hit just the tip of his chin and tore his whole half of his neck off. And I don't think he even heard the shot. He was laying down in a pool of blood. And I realized that it was over. And I didn't know how we would continue. But he had always said that no matter what happens to any of us, whoever's left has to try to carry on.
Martin Luther King 20 minutes ago died.
King became the object of international homage after his death. Schools, roads, and buildings throughout the United States were named after him. In 1986, the U.S. Congress voted to observe a national holiday in his honor on the third Monday of January. But that was just the beginning of the national recognition of the civil servant.
The message is not lost and will live on in the nation's capital after this.